So thank you so much for joining Apne Aap this evening for the VIP launch of our Feminist Museum of Grassroots Action. We are very excited to show you how the 1 Million Meals Initiative has come to life and how the COVID relief efforts of Apne Aap and other abolitionist feminist organizations across the globe have taken root. So here with me today are the three other curators of the museum. I have Siddhi, Simone, and Ida. I'm also joined with our founder and president, Ruchira Gupta, who is here today with Gloria Steinem and one of our board members, Mona Sinha. Feel free to use the chat throughout the presentation to leave questions and comments, and I'm now going to pass it to Ruchira to say her hellos before we get started with the museum walkthrough.
Hello everyone, I'm so pleased to be presenting the Feminist Museum of Grassroots Action, which has literally been created by the team you see in front of you, Ida, Simone, Anika and Siddhi, who have all done this brilliant job, and you will see it very, very soon. So without much ado, I hand over to the team, starting with Siddhi and then Simone, to tell you about what we are going to present. The main thing that we do want to talk about is COVID and the fantastic work that feminist organizations did on the ground to fill in gaps that the government did not. Especially our NGO, Apne Aap, made sure that we provided food to victims of sex trafficking and their children, Rohingya refugees, and also migrant women trapped in slums. Over to you all.
Thank you so much for introducing us, Ruchira. Without further ado, I'm just gonna dive right in and show you the preview of our exhibition. I'm just gonna quickly share my screen with you. Just bear with me 1 second. So, if anyone can just say loud yes if you can see the video.
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. It's just you all disappeared now. So, I am Simone, and I have been able to work with Apne Aap over the past couple of months to curate the very first exhibition named 1 Million Meals COVID Relief for our Feminist Museum of Grassroots Action. Just a quick background check on Apne Aap. Apne Aap is a women's rights organization based in both New York and India, and working with women and children on the ground in India to prevent intergenerational prostitution. So as part of our COVID relief that we've named 1 million meals, because as Ruchira already said in the opening, we were aiming to provide food and also sanitary products to marginalized communities in India, mostly women. We have created this exhibition around this COVID relief, and you're now seeing the first room. When you go on our website, you will be taken through the exhibition via a guided tour, and it will take you to the first wall. And we've named the first introductory room by a quote by Gloria Steinem, who ever so kindly joined us today in this call as well, which is, "We are linked, not ranked." There's two reasons why we decided on this quote. Firstly, that's because it's a COVID relief effort, and if anything, if the virus taught us anything over the past 18 months, is that we are not ranked. The virus does not discriminate. It doesn't matter where you're based, how much money you have. If you're a woman or a man, the virus will affect you. Even if it's in a poorer part of town, where there's no vaccinations available and there's no access to health facilities, it will still spread to the rest of the city. Of course, what is also true is that the most marginalized communities around the world were also most affected by it. But just the general idea and the general approach of the virus is, of course, that there are no hierarchies if there's a global pandemic going on. The other part of why the quote is so fitting for our effort, "We are linked," is that we were only able to distribute as many meals as we did. The aim was 1 million. We are now well over 12 million, but I'm going to get more into that later on. But the only way that we were able to succeed with that is to understand the interconnectedness of one another. So we were only able to reach the most marginalized by creating a human chain, our individual approach in between communities, countries, and people. So the first wall is just explaining what we were aiming to do, what the idea was. The next wall that the exhibition will then take you to is titled COVID-19 in India. And that's because our COVID relief effort took place on the ground in India, and we thought that we should give a bit of background information on the unique situation of the virus there. That is because, of course, in March 2020, most countries around the world went into lockdown, but the lockdown in India had a specific and unique nature, which was that all business shut down, which first threatened the livelihood of a lot of people, but then also public transport shut down, which further alienated marginalized communities in India. So when you go on our exhibition, you will find out more facts and figures about the unique nature of that lockdown in India. Then the rest of the wall are all photos that were taken by the Apne Aap team. And because it's an interactive exhibition, when you click on each individual photo, the description will show you more information on what you're seeing, who you're seeing, and about the food insecurity, the lack of access to education, and the health risks that were taking place that are taking place in India right now. So that is whatever you want to find out, you'll be able to click yourself through the images. The next wall is then titled The Human Chain. It's what I just mentioned in the beginning. It is our unique approach to this project. I'll just quickly explain to you what we mean by this. So we understand the human chain as the inextricable link and connection between human beings. We use this approach for our COVID relief effort. It started with our Apne Aap leadership. It went on to donors and celebrities, other NGOs that work on the ground, warehouse owners, factories, student volunteers, community organizers, and of course, at last, the beneficiaries. And this is, as I said, when you click on the photos, you'll find out more information on this approach, but this is what made our COVID relief effort as successful and effective as it was in the end. Again, you see a photo on the right that illustrates the human chain of actual workers on the ground. The next will give a bit of background information on Apne Aap as an organization for anyone who goes to the exhibition and hasn't had this curated walkthrough. It explains the general idea again of our efforts, and the rest of the wall, that space is used of 3 of our beneficiaries that explain to you their unique situation, circumstances, and their wishes and hopes from the government to continue to ensure a sustainable livelihood for them in the future. So this is almost the end of the first introductory room before we dive into the actual in-depth information on our project. But it wouldn't be complete without the unique situation that we found ourselves in and what really started 1 million meals. And that was just one WhatsApp message from a 13-year-old girl that asked for food and sent this message to our founder, Ruchira Gupta. And this ballooned into this extensive effort that, as I mentioned, has reached over 250,000 women and girls so far. And it was important for me to include this because we all have access to the internet, we all have WhatsApp on our phone to communicate, and I hope that leaves people to wonder what we might be able to do with our resources. At the end of the room, we're just quickly looking at the names that have invested their time into this work so far. Then we entered the second room now, which we named Walking with Purpose. That's because the second room is dedicated to all the information that you might want to have about our COVID relief effort, 1 million meals. It will show you the faces of the people that were part of this human chain. And these faces and these people make sure that every single step they take is filled with purpose. So that's why we thought this was an appropriate name for our exhibition. We'll then slide over to the next wall, which illustrates the human chain. You'll find every single link. You find several photos, the names of the NGOs that have helped us in our efforts, and more information on where they've been active. Again, when you click on the photos, you'll find out more information. We then, of course, end this with our beneficiaries. Again, when you click on the photos, you'll find out who they are, how we reach them, and what we've done for them. And that's the beneficiaries wall. to round up our 1 million meals effort and the information you might need to understand how it all worked, we just come up with another definition, which is the last girl. That's because we understand it is incredibly important to identify who is it that you want to reach before you then identify the steps that are necessary to actually reach that person. And we think that the last girl can, of course, be a 12-year-old girl in a brothel in India, but it can also be a 19-year-old teenage woman shaking at a street corner in Atlanta. And it's usually a girl with multiple marginalizations that prevent her from accessing food, housing, legal protection, and other aid that could create a sustainable and dignified life for this person. So, just gonna turn over now to the summary wall, pretty much. It's just facts and figures about where we have served people with the exact numbers over the past 18 months. Again, just to summarize it, the goal was to distribute 1 million meals, and we have distributed over 12 million meals to over 250,000 women and girls. And I'm incredibly proud to say this right now. Before we wrap up with the second room, I'm just gonna quickly go over this comic that was written by Ruchira, and this was put into place and created because one of Apne Aap's beliefs is that one of the biggest preventions for human trafficking is education. So this is an educational comic set during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in India, when millions of migrants walked back to their villages and many women were preyed upon by sex traffickers. When you go on our 1 Million Meals website, you'll be able to download a free copy for educational purposes. So that was the second room, and we're now about to enter for me, the most inspiring work I've seen in a really long time. Of course, we wanted to use this museum and this exhibition during the COVID pandemic to make change interactive, but it's of course not just us that have done work on the ground. So we reached out to various women's rights organizations around the world on different continents to ask them to share with us what they've been doing during the pandemic for their community. And I can only say that it is not just heartwarming, but dedicated work to the community that really inspires one to do something and look around and see what you can do. Of course, these organizations are based all around the world, because all around the world government failed to help out and assist some of their citizens, the most marginalized of their citizens, or even people that live in their country that might not even have citizen status. So this is the wall that shows all the logos of all the participating organizations, together with a photo that sums up their work. Of course, it's incredibly difficult to do that with one photo, but I think they've done a great job. The organization's locations range from the Matilda Just Engaged Foundation, that's in upstate New York, to Smith College Museum of Art, that is in Massachusetts. And we've got Germany, we've got France, we've got the UK, we've got Italy, and we even got Nigeria and Canada. So this work that is displayed here ranges from, of course, also food distribution to counseling to even art projects, because all of this can provide a relief for organizations. The next wall is displays submissions that we've received from the International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Council. It doesn't just offer statements and assessments of the situation of trafficked people during the pandemic, but also they were able to submit various pieces of art and photos and inspiring stories by the council members, who are individuals who've done the individual effort to do what they can do for their community during this hard time. One of the submissions that I want to point out here is this one by Kenneth Alaimo, who is both a human trafficking survivor and artist, who is based in Chicago. And she created this art piece specifically for this exhibition. And this represents the work that Apne Aap has been doing as bread being handed in between communities. And there's more art by trafficking survivors on the wall. And I'm incredibly grateful that they wanted to participate in this. Although I've mentioned many times now that I'm incredibly proud of what individuals can do and what they've shown that they can do to be there for one another. In order to really provide a sustainable livelihood for people, we need governments around the world to take action. So this is why we've included a government recommendations rule that outlines some of the points that we expect governments to do in the future to create a dignified life for everyone. And at the very end, of course, there's a call for action for anyone who visited this exhibition and believes that they want to do something but aren't sure where they should start because it's such a systematic and large problem. And we've linked to our website for anyone wanting to take necessary steps to do something. And that's the preview of the exhibition. Anyone who wants to view it can now go on our website, apneaap.org, and it will be there for you to take your own time and look through it yourself. And now I think we're handing over to Sidi. Is that Sidi?
I believe Anna is going to do it. Yeah. So thank you, Simone. I do hope everyone goes to our websites tomorrow when the museum launches and you'll be able to walk through it yourself. So now we're just going to be sharing a little bit of the impact created by 1 million meals. And we have a presentation prepared by me and a student from Ahmedabad University, which is pre-recorded. So I'm just going to share my screen with you guys now. Hi, my name is Anika. I'm a student volunteer at Apne Aap, and today I'm here with Ishita Panwar, a student volunteer from Ahmedabad University. We're going to be presenting on the impact created by Apne Aap's 1 Million Meals initiative. The report was written both quantitatively and qualitatively to analyze the results of Apne Aap's 1 Million Meals, and today we'll be presenting on the most important points. So for a little bit of background on how hashtag 1 Million Meals was initiated, it started in response to a WhatsApp message that Ruchira received from a girl who had been sent home from school to the red light areas when the lockdown started. Her mom, who was transitioning to daily wage work, lost all income, and this cry for help, among many others, is what initiated the 1 Million Meals project. So this started as a stopgap till government systems were set in place to address food insecurity, but these systems are yet to be set in place, and Apne Aap has continued with 1 Million Meals for over 18 months. So starting with around 800 families on March of 2020, we have scaled now to 123,000 families as of June of 2021. This has amounted to about 12.3 million meals as of June of 2021. So now I'd look into the model that has helped the 1 Million Meals campaign both scale and sustain. It's been the human change. So starting at the top with Apne Aap's leadership and Ruchira Gupta, with many links along the way, including celebrities, donors, shopkeepers, student volunteers, NGOs, and then all the way down to every last girl, which is the beneficiaries. Now for a closer look into one of the links of our chain, we have the NGOs supported by Apne Aap. So Apne Aap has supported around 27 NGOs all over India through the 1 Million Meals campaign, and this has helped them reach the most vulnerable communities. Now for a more concrete look into when we were reaching these beneficiaries. So in June of 2020, we reached around 75,000 beneficiaries, and this was when the first wave of the COVID virus was at its peak in India. Now, if we take a look into 2021, in June, we reached 150,000 beneficiaries, and this is once again when COVID was at its peak. So for a breakdown of these beneficiaries, about 0.15 million were women and about 250,000 were children. Now, if we take a look at the meals distributed, so we distributed around 12.32 million meals as of June of 2021, and that amounts to about 123,000 ration kits, and the largest amount was going to both West Bengal, Delhi, and Haryana. I'm now going to pass it off to Ishita to continue with our numerical impact and to give us a look into some of our government recommendations.
Yes, sure. So there are many women in India who still use cloth and consider using it safe. So Apne Aap has done a great job to reaching out to many states and distributing sanitary pads, which amounted to 0.25 million in total. And these were distributed between March 2020 to June 2021 in some of these states, as you can see in the graph. And here we see is the pie chart showcasing the impact on children that Apne Aap has had and how many children it reached out to. Because many children have been abandoned by their parents in the red light areas. Along with this, there was very little government support that they received. Also, not just this, but they did not have the required resources to continue their education. Hence, they were in a very vulnerable state. And here, as we see, is the pictorial representation of what a single ration kit comprises. It has 12 very basic yet essential items. And now we come to the government recommendations owing to the COVID-19. First is to re-establish affordable and accessible decentralized healthcare systems to ensure that migrant populations and informal sector workers are included in the national and regional post-pandemic recovery measures. Second we have is that government should really tie up with the NGOs and local retailers and wholesalers. So this would provide for a faster network of food distribution. Third, we have is the implementation of new fiscal policies. We can take up examples of countries like the US, Australia, and China, where they have implemented the policies that had fiscal measures to help the vulnerable, to financially support actually. And also they had conducted efficient vaccination drives. Fourth, we have is providing economic stimulus and unemployment benefits to people who are daily wage earners. Next up, we have to empower the essential workers like nurses, doctors, and PHCs, and providing them with adequate healthcare supplies so that they could further on help people. Next up, we have COVID-19 awareness campaigns in multiple languages and through various mediums like radio announcements, televisions, etc. This would actually sensitize people about the effects of COVID-19, and they would henceforth take the preventive measures. Next, appropriate channels must be intended to guarantee that passes, food collection, and donations are distributed and made available to beneficiaries. Last but not the least, childcare services must be empowered to help vulnerable children. Here, as you can see, we have some quotes that reflect how happy and grateful the beneficiaries are for the help extended by Apne Aap. Apart from food and nutrition, the organization has tremendously helped children with getting access to education. So here we have is a senior-most student from her community. She says that the organization helped her get a hostel facility, got her enrolled in the school, and helped her with the groceries and rent. Next we have is Mr. Rahman, who works as a street magician. So COVID-19 affected not just him, but all the families in his community. But he's very grateful for the help extended by Ruchira ma'am and her team in this difficult time. Thank you very much, all of you present here, for being a keen listener to our presentation. We will be very soon releasing the in-depth report of the impact that Apne Aap has had on various beneficiaries. So stay tuned.
All right, thank you all for listening. And now we'll be presenting a message by Chandra. So Chandra is a human rights activist, founder of the survivor empowerment group Mentari, and a survivor of human trafficking herself. And it's my pleasure to play this video by her today.
My name is Chandra Waruntu. I am the chair of OSCE, or the International Survivor of Trafficking Advisory Council. And I am the CEO of Mentari, a nonprofit organization based in New York, USA. Today is the day that the preview of Feminist Museum of Grassroots Action is happening to highlight the impact of Apne Aap 1 million meals COVID relief initiative campaigns that gave impact to 100,000 million people, especially in India. And this is how important work of Apne Aap that happening. And also this museum is highlighting the work of anti-trafficking work and also survivors during the COVID-19 and also post-COVID-19. Even though now the variant of the COVID-19 is developed, and we still need to continue to help those people which need our help. They need our help and support to fight the hunger, to fight this virus. We need food, we need PPE, and we need our time and energy. And thank you, Ruchira, and also the team will give opportunity to ISTA to be featured and the survivors to be featured in this museum. And amazingly, to respond the World Day against human trafficking, we see that a lot of things need to be done. Prevention, protection, and prosecution. Prevention, we need comprehensive, proactive prevention to make sure there will be no victim. Let's make survivor the last and no more survivor because of we have to end this trafficking. Protection to make sure survivor will be protected and expanded to the family members to make sure that we have that protection and to break the cycle that survivor will be re-victimized by the traffickers. And prosecution to make sure trafficker and their allies and also sex buyers will be prosecuted. A lot more work to do. A lot more partnership and collaboration. I invite you to check Apne Aap website about the campaigns and also to join us tomorrow to launch this Feminist Museum of Grassroots Action. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. A very sweet message from Chandra. She unfortunately wasn't able to make it today live, but she sends her best wishes. I'm now going to pass it off to Ida to introduce our next dance.
Thank you, Annika. And thank you all for attending this VIP preview event. We would like to share a special dance performance with you now as a bit of a palate cleanser before our talk with Ruchira Gupta and Gloria Steinem. So now we'll see a performance by a dancer from Munich, Sandra Chatterjee.
To dance to. Thank you so much for the invitation to contribute and give me the chance to send my best wishes from Munich for your wonderful initiative and event, and also to have the chance to dance to a song of Ida Joe's called Bones.
across the raging sea. These bones came from sand and they'll make their way to the promised land. These bones, well, they can't be free. Till then they'll carry me. These bones came from sound and they'll make their way back to the ground. These bones, well, they can't be free. Till then they'll carry me. Till then they'll carry me.
All right, a lovely dance. Thank you, Ida. I'm now going to pass it off to Siddhi to introduce our conversation between Gloria and Ruchira.
Yeah, that was so lovely. Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to present to you a beautiful conversation between our founder, Ruchira Gupta, and the amazing Gloria Steinem, centered on the powerful theme that we are all linked and not ranked, as said by Gloria Steinem. It is a powerful conversation about courage, hope, and resilience, speaking up for what is right, but most importantly, acting upon what is right. The Apne Aap team is so grateful to have the support of Gloria Steinem, and this conversation is just one little glimpse into the importance of her legacy and all the work that she has done to empower women in societies across the world. We hope you enjoy it and that it leaves you inspired. We're also so honored to have Ruchira and Gloria here with us at the virtual event. So if you would like to ask any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will have them answer a couple at the end of the conversation. Hope you enjoy.
Namaste, I'm Ruchira, the founder of Apne Aap, which launched the 1 Million Meals campaign to get food to victims of sex trafficking and their children during the COVID crisis in India. And today I'm here in conversation with a very dear friend and a person who's inspired me in my activism for the last 2 years, 2 decades, Gloria Steinem. Gloria has been on the ground with me in the slums of India when I began my work a long, long time ago, and has come again and again to meet the girls and women I work with in India. I have traveled with her, I've shared stories with her, and I have written with her. This conversation is based on all those conversations we've had, which has led to the 1 Million Meals campaign in some ways. The 1 Million Meals campaign has gone on for more than 18 months now and provided 250,000 women and girls from the most vulnerable sections of society in India with more than 12 million meals. Many of the strategies that are employed for the 1 million meals actually came out of conversations with Gloria. Gloria, we are linked, not ranked is such a practical strategy besides being a wonderful philosophy. How did you understand this and what can you share about it with the people listening to us today?
Well, as I was listening to you, I was realizing I should explain that, first of all, I'm a lot older than you are. Secondly, when I first graduated from college in the 1950s, I went to India and I lived in India for 2 years. So really, I learned this in India. And so it was, of course, always the other, besides the United States and India, two huge, diverse democracies. In the 1950s, when I arrived there, it was very much still a Gandhian era, and in which there was an understanding that you organized from the bottom up, not from top down. So I say this because otherwise I fear we think of ourselves as distant from each other. But in fact, just as we viscerally connected across generations and continents, and I learned first in India and translated what I learned there here, we are in a kind of big circle in which our individual acts then influence our collective acts and change our consciousness wherever we are in whatever country we are. I wonder if we aren't maybe more likely to understand this now because we've had a disastrous year of disease with COVID. And of course, COVID does not respect national boundaries. COVID does not care what race or class or gender we are. So I hope that the positive part of this huge tragedy may be that there is another leap of understanding to take us beyond national boundaries and towards a real understanding that I learned in India and it changed my life here and vice versa. Yes, they're definitely linked. Yes. Shira, it seems to me as I look not only at your whole life, but the most recent past, when you have been literally unwanted posters in your own country of India, when you have been going back and forth in what is now kind of dangerous travel between our two distant countries. It's a miracle to me. You probably can't answer this, but I just don't know where your bravery comes from. How does it begin? Like what you said, that courage comes by doing. So I was also brought up in a Gandhian household where I was taught to stick by the truth, come what may, and also think about what I could do for the other, the last, as a part of a lifestyle. It wasn't cut off like it wasn't in compartments that I would do this for myself and that for the other, but it was part of living and breathing, that we are interconnected and interdependent. And so I saw my parents as incredibly courageous people in little acts, not in flamboyant big acts, but my father as a 15-year-old would tell me stories about how he wanted so much to be part of Gandhi's movement, and India had just become independent, and he wanted to go to jail because Gandhi had asked all young people to go to jail, and he felt he would never get the chance. So he mobilized with other young people, and they went to a court and held the hand of a judge who was writing a judgment in English, saying India is now independent and you can't pass a judgment in English. And he was put into jail. And he said that being in jail transformed him because he learned to live with all kinds of prisoners in a big shed where they were overlooking the toilets, and it was unclean, it was dirty, there were lots of mosquitoes, bats hanging over them. But it also taught him that by doing, he found a courage inside himself, which he did not know, that he could live through dirt, he could live through enclosure, isolation, beatings, and all of that. So that was kind of inspiring to me. My own natural instinct has always been to jump into the fire. And I've always tried to stand up for what I believe in, because it was something I heard, maybe something I read. A lot of books inspired me, where people like Jane Austen or Louisa May Alcott
when they wrote about the courage that women found to write. And at times when, women's names were not being published as writers, women were not getting publishers, etc. So I found that interesting because I like stories and I wanted to write too. I also saw around me very courageous people who actually, I was another man I knew who went to the Andaman's jail and was in prison for life for fighting for India's freedom. And then I met someone like you much later, and your courage was kind of a gentle courage. You would go into situations and try to resolve conflict for the greater good. And you would do it with people who might judge you, who might think that you were trying to play a savior, but you were not doing any of that. And I saw that because you did it so quietly. And I began to appreciate quiet courage and gentle courage very much, and that it brings about change. I saw also that it was practical because if you have the courage to do something, other people join you slowly, and it becomes enough of a mass that it brings about change. I went back, but I did use knowledge from the books I'd read, the movies I'd watched on fascism, and conversations with people like you and activists in Iran, where I'd lived and worked, working for UNICEF. That what should I be doing when I go back to the country which can protect me? And three things helped me, which I want other activists to know about actually. One was that I spoke to people who were politically powerful in America, two former presidents, President Jimmy Carter and President Bill Clinton, to let them know that I was going to India, and they informed their friends in the American embassy there in case I needed their help or protection to get out suddenly. The second thing I did was that I went into an event which was high profile with the Queen of Sweden. And we did it at the United Nations office and invited global media to cover the event. So that gave me a kind of protection to show the kind of work I was doing. Third was I let fellow activists and leaders in the women's movement like you know that I was going, so that with phone numbers and things to do if I wasn't here, and if I would end up in jail. And the fourth thing I did was that I filed a case against the government of India in the Calcutta High Court, saying that if you have to freeze the bank accounts of my NGO, please give evidence about why you should do so. And you cannot punish an NGO for the political beliefs of the founder. So instead of shadow boxing, I pulled it out into the open and made myself high profile, got the protection of a powerful government, of a movement, of the feminist movement, and legal. And then, of course, I left it to chance that what would happen would happen. And, it's always a bit of a scare going back because every time I go back, more friends are in jail. An intern of mine is in jail, a former intern, a former student is in jail. So, the courage comes from just doing, I think, really.
It comes from just doing, but it comes from such a deep belief in democracy that you believe you are empowered as an individual. You use all your contacts with other individuals, regardless of what it is. And that's so important because we are defeated in our minds before we are defeated any other way. And I know that the power of positive thinking is not seen as a very profound statement, but I think it is profound. That we use whatever it is, whatever we know, the context we have, the food we have access to, whatever it is, to build our own networks and our own circles. And you are such an example of that under duress. I mean, I'm anxious all over again, just listening to your story, remembering how anxious we all were for you, and I'm sure your family doubly anxious.
And that's why I would share no information with you or my family while I was there. I would just send you photographs because I didn't want to add to the anxiety, and I had to do what I had to do.
Well, I wish we could somehow magically multiply you and your story, because you are giving courage and strength and faith faith in each person's uniqueness to everybody who's listening right now. And I hope that this tape is spread far and wide, because this is like a seed, and we don't know what flowers there will be from people listening to your story, being inspired by your story, and carrying their own stories forward with much more courage and humor and love and enjoyment and living in the moment, which happens to be the only time. I believe Kerala, of course, the southernmost state, which has a tradition of equality, matrilineal structures, and so on and so forth, had the least danger from COVID. So, it's not a democracy that's confined to one area. If you have a democracy, you have more likelihood of everyone surviving. It's hierarchy that is the danger, which is why I get so hooked on saying that we are linked, not ranked, as a more immediate expression of that actually will keep us safe.
Yes, because hierarchy creates also access to food. Who gets more food and who gets less food? And we saw that while running 1 million meals. That while people who had certain income levels would manage to get food in spite of the lockdown, those living in slums, street performers, Rohingya refugees, and victims of sex trafficking in red light areas, they absolutely were eating 3 meals a week. We talk about 3 meals a day, they were eating 3 meals a week. And the government has so invisibilized them that there was no conversation about that how our system is going to be created to reach that person with food. And so that was when I realized something else that you talk about, that when leadership fails, then don't look to the top, look at each other and carry on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, I think that it's part of the secret of everything, that just to look at each other, to look laterally, and to make an emotional connection, and just to act, and to have faith in it as you did, just to do it, because otherwise the state of anxiety and fear keeps us from seeing what's possible in the present, in the eternal present.
That's so true. That's what you asked me, like, how did I have the courage? I may have had the courage to plunge in from rage, but the courage to carry on and to keep doing it was actually because I started doing something. Because then you get the satisfaction of doing something and achieving that. So then you begin to feel, yes, I have some control and I'm the person who I am, and it doesn't matter what the leader or the fascist or whoever he is doing.
Well, it does happen that we can only live in the present. So I don't know how we let people persuade us to put our minds in the future or the past. No. And I'm so grateful for this present right now in this room.
Thank you. Just thank you for being
like
here.
food itself.
Thank you. It's just so wonderful, and we're so happy to share some of our thoughts with all of you. We'll continue this conversation over the years as long as we can. Namaste.
Thank you.
That was such a nice conversation. Thank you so much. And thank you both for being here to answer any questions. So I want to turn it to the audience quickly and just see if anyone has any questions for Ruchira or Gloria. You can put them in the chat or you can ask. And I can even get started with a question. So with so many problems in the world of all different natures, what do you think the average person can do to get involved? Like, where should they start? How should they go about it? what do you think is the first step to really getting involved when these problems seem so insurmountable and it feels like what can the single person do?
You go first.
Well, I think the first thing is to do something, okay? So whatever is closest to us, whatever we have, I mean, whether it's reaching out to a neighbor or encouraging people to vote or, I mean, anything. Whatever is close to us, just get up in the morning and saying, okay, what can I do? Here's the, because inaction becomes seductive and action becomes intoxicating. So if you do one thing, you will do another, and another.
Thank you so much. I love that. Inaction is seductive and action is intoxicating. That's amazing. Ruchira, would you like to add anything to that or speak anything about, something, maybe a part of your conversation that we didn't get to see that was important to you?
Yeah, ditto to what Gloria said, that, words are words until you act on them. And very often, because so many of our ideas come from what we study and books, that we get lost in the seduction of books and ideas, but it doesn't matter till we actually do something. So walking the talk or doing something is the most helpful.
I don't know if this example will make sense to you, but I was trying to follow my own advice. So I thought, okay, I'm going to walk outside my door here in New York. I'm going to do the first thing I see. So the first person I saw was the mailman. So I talked to him and I discovered he was the political boss of Queens. So we began to work together after that. I mean, it's exciting because you don't know what will happen.
Definitely. There's so many places where we can help just in our own communities, and start talking to people is so important. We actually have a question from Ida in the chat. So she wrote that Ruchira spoke about courage in the video. Perhaps Gloria, can you share your thoughts on courage and what that means to you?
Well, courage comes from the heart, literally, in terms of the word. And I think that tells us that it's not necessarily in our heads, it's in our impulse. So when we see something that needs doing, a person needs help, we ourselves need help, this is not all a one-way street, whatever it is that comes from the heart, the head may take a little longer, but comes from the heart, we should just do it. I mean, maybe we should put a big sign on our wall that says, just do it.
Definitely. That's so powerful. And I think that it's really speaks to 1 million meals as well, because I mean, you could have used the pandemic as an excuse to do nothing, but rather it was a spark for action. So that's amazing. And I think that's a great way to close out this section of our launch, or our virtual museum exhibition. So thank you so much.
I think there's still a question in the chat if you want to, if we still have time.
I'm so sorry. I missed it. So there's a question from Monica. I'm currently living in Colombia and I am very involved in rural women's empowerment. It would be a good first step to explore rural feminism and the needs of these women, how to deal with the culture. Kind of a question, how do you deal with the cultural difference?
I think some things during COVID, what I learned was that basic needs are universal, like food, clothing, shelter, education, protection, and all these things vanished. So I began working from basic needs, and then the context reveals itself, because obviously the political culture is different in each country, the social culture is different in each country, but when you go down to the ground, then the cultural context becomes apparent, because the people you're working with help you navigate that. You're answering a need, you're organizing in a community. So it's easy to navigate culture when you have the people with you, because people make culture, and culture is dynamic. Gloria?
Well, I say yes. And also, that you can practice instant democracy by remembering to listen as much as you talk and talk as much as you listen. It's amazing that what an impact that simple thing can have.
Yes, definitely. And then we have one last question from Simone. So she asks, with the feminist movement becoming more and more fragmented, how can we shift the focus back to our similarities rather than our differences?
Well, I think we would need to know what the questioner means by fragmented, because she's speaking out of her own experience. And, I'm not sure that I can address that except to say to look for commonalities. No matter how different we may be, there are always commonalities.
Definitely. Sounds good. Does anyone else have a last minute question? We have this tremendous resource of Ruchira and Gloria in the same room, so I want everyone to take advantage of that. But if not, thank you so much sincerely for the conversation and also for taking the time to answer all of our questions. It's so great to learn through seeing and doing, and not just by reading in history books, as I've heard so much about you, Gloria. So this is so nice to see you both and to learn from
I
you.
just want to say how great it is to see the future. I mean, makes me happy just to look at you, right? So I support you. I love you. Tell me how I can help.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for those thoughtful words, and Sydney for moderating. This is the conclusion of our event this evening, and I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to join us. And we do hope you can join our public launch tomorrow in partnership with the UN and OSCE. The links for registering for that Zoom is both on our Apne Aap website and the 1 Million Meals website. And our museum will also be physically launching on those websites tomorrow, so you can go ahead and walk around yourself. And we wish you all a great rest of your evening. And for those across the globe, we thank you for joining, and an early good morning to you as well.